Hi, it's me. Welcome to another ID and Ego overview for Limbus Company. This week brought us Walpurgis Nacht 9, and two new triple-out IDs come with it in Dawn Office Fixer Faust and Dawn Office Rep Gregor, both of whom are a hybrid between Burn and Tremor. It also brings Solemn Lament, a new He Ego for Yi Sang that is a hybrid between Tremor and Sinking. You don't need me to tell you that these are fantastic, so without further ado, let's get right into their kits. To start off, both Dawn Office IDs resist burn damage and can't be staggered or killed by burn, and they both have a unique status they gain effects from. For Dawn Office Fixer Faust, this is Fire Butterfly Coffin, which has a max stack of 30 and can gain 20 stacks per turn. It increases whenever she lands a hit with base skills, but she also has a lot of skill effects that gain it as well. At 20 or more stacks, it starts inflicting burn to herself, which isn't too big of a downside and helps her activate some effects on her skills and ego. Her field passive also gives her Fire Butterfly Coffin at combat start, while she has Battle Instinct, an effect we'll get into later. Additionally, it gives her an Assist Attack skill that triggers when Dawn Office units fulfill certain conditions. If they stagger an enemy, or when any other Dawn Office ally uses their skill 3 or any of their variants, it will also be used. Seconded Offensive is a 4-10 rolling/gluttony skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 7-13 based on her Fire Butterfly Coffin. It deals a good amount of damage, and the fact that it inflicts count for both of her primary effects is really helpful. Additionally, Gluttony is a pretty rare affinity in burn teams, so having this activate for free will be really useful for Sin generation. Lastly, while Dawn Office Sinclair is on the field, she'll deal wrath damage based on the target's burn whenever she hits using a reused coin on her base skills. This counts as activating burn for another effect on these units, and will increase her damage by a pretty good amount each turn. Speaking of Dawn Office Sinclair, she grants him a unique status effect while on the field. High Noon is an incredibly valuable offensive buff, granting Sinclair 2 min speed, a good damage boost as well as 2 base power to all of his base attack skills, which is insane enough to make him clash good. It will make his skill 2 trigger enemy burn on the final hit as well, and it makes Blazing Strike deal 100% more damage, become unbreakable, activate the target's burn, and when at high enough Volatile Passion, he will consume Scorch Field to deal up to 100% additional damage. Scorch Field is a new field effect like Blood Feast, its value increasing by burn damage taken from all units, and resets each time a new wave begins. You don't need to think too hard about it, the only thing that can consume it as of now is Blazing Strike, while Sinclair has one of the Dawn Fixer buffs. When Faust dies, High Noon becomes Loneliness at High Noon, which is a better version of the buff, granting double the amount of damage and 1 more base power to all attack skills, lets Blazing Strike deal 50 to 100% more damage on top of the previous boost, and grants the Unrelenting effect to Sinclair, which also unstaggers him after it triggers. High Noon is already insanely good without Faust dying, and you don't really want the additional boost after Faust dies since it means Faust is dead, which is bad. Regardless, deploying them together is a really good decision if you happen to have both, but only prioritize starting Sinclair if you already have Faust. Lastly, her support passive is really bad, granting 3 offense level up and defense level up, but only if that is the only surviving ally. This includes backup units, and while you can force this by not deploying everybody, most story battles in Railways and Reflect Trial force you to deploy everyone, so good luck making use of it in that content. Her defense skill is Stigmatize, a 5-13 rolling/wrath clashable counter with 2 coins that can become up to a 5-17 based on the amount of burn on herself. It's her only skill that can only gain Fire Butterfly Coffin once per encounter for some reason, and is a tool mostly designed to keep her self-burn in check, not that it can really damage her too bad anyways. It's an alright skill, but the main draw is if you use it at 30 Fire Butterfly Coffin. It then becomes Dismemberment at High Noon, a 5-17 rolling/wrath unfocused volley with 3 unbreakable coins that can become up to a 5-23 based on the main target's burn and tremor. It deals a ton of extra damage based on how much HP she's missing and the target's burn, and every hit will convert the target's tremor to Scorch if it can. It also inflicts a ton of count for both burn and tremor to all of its targets, which is incredibly valuable, and clashes 3 higher than listed, plus up to an additional 4 based on the target's burn and tremor. After the skill ends, she heals up to half her HP by consuming her own burn, consumes all of her Fire Butterfly Coffin, and gains 3 Battle Instinct. The final coin of all of her skills can be reused either once or twice depending on the skill, and it contributes to her insane damage quite a bit. Battle Instinct stacks up to 3 times and it never decreases, but it's a great effect similar to Sheen, increasing her min speed by 2, makes her base skills inflict more burn, and makes all of her best skills deal a bit more damage. The primary utility of this skill is to gain more Battle Instinct and to heal herself. You only need to do this once in an encounter to maximize her potential, and since it's tied to her counter, it's super available at all times. Since Fire Butterfly Coffin builds up pretty quick, you'll usually be able to use it on turn 3 or 4, and you'll always want to use it as soon as possible in order to have Battle Instinct to maximize her abilities. Flash of Sunup is a 3-11 rolling / pride skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 6-14 based on the target's burn and tremor, and gains up to 3 clash power based on her Fire Butterfly Coffin. I really did mean that all of her skills can reuse the final coin, and this is no exception, making it a really good skill 1 for overall damage, even if the infliction on it only goes crazy once she actually has Battle Instinct. Butterfly Slash is a 4-16 rolling / sloth skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 7-19 based on the target's burn and tremor, and gains up to 3 clash power based on her Fire Butterfly Coffin. The final coin on this skill can reuse twice, though oddly it can only trigger Tremor Burst once even if it does reuse both times. The first coin can also inflict a good amount of count for both burn and tremor. It's a crazy good skill for damage, and this is still only her skill 2. Eject is a 5-17 rolling / wrath skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-23 based on the target's burn and tremor. It's a really powerful skill that serves as a single target version of her other skill 3 variants, dealing a bit less damage and being far worse at inflicting potency of either burn or tremor, but still good at inflicting count for both. The 2 reuses definitely make it an amazing skill on its own. At 30 Fire Butterfly Coffin, it instead becomes Eject High Noon, a 5-17 rolling / wrath unfocused volley with 3 unbreakable coins that can become up to a 5-23 based on the main target's burn and tremor. It is almost identical to Dismemberment at High Noon, with the only difference being found in the attack end section of the skill. It only grants 1 Battle Instinct, not an issue if you use Dismemberment at High Noon first, and doesn't consume Fire Butterfly Coffin or heal. Instead, she inflicts 1 power down to all enemies that she hits with the skill, which is incredibly powerful, and she gains Overheated Coffin. Overheated Coffin just gives her a little bit more burn and stops her from using Dismemberment at High Noon. Just like that skill, this is insanely good for damage, and the fact that it doesn't consume your Fire Butterfly Coffin means you will want to use it whenever possible. Her being able to generate Gluttony gives her access to perfectly fuel a bunch of ego she wouldn't otherwise, the best of which being Command Meltdown. The massive amount of healing it provides to your team, and especially herself, make it invaluable, but you definitely aren't required to bring it. In the same slot, Ardor Blossom's Star is perfectly fueled too, and the Embers effect it offers makes burn quite a bit stronger. Her being a self-burn ID means she can also take advantage of the passive to inflict even more burn, making her a great inflictor of the status. She also perfectly fuels Representation Emitter, which is good for SP healing, especially since it's an ego that everybody has, since it's currently her only option for the Zayn slot. This is also a great ID to use Everlasting with, since once she has Battle Instinct, she becomes incredibly fast, so setting up a turn where you're able to do an Amplitude Entanglement into Everlasting with Scorch, and then add whatever you need onto it, specifically something like Reverb, will make it so that dealing a ton of extra damage to bosses will become a lot easier for a full Tremor setup. And while she doesn't perfectly fuel it, Hexnail will passively increase her damage while she has burn thanks to its passive, so it's a good ego to have equipped as well. Moving on now to Dawn Office Rep Gregor, his unique scaling status is Light of Daybreak, stacking up to 30 and being able to gain 20 per turn, just like Fire Butterfly Coffin. It also gives him burn at the start of combat based on the stack, but also lets him inflict more burn potency or count based on how high the stack is too, giving him that bonus without needing a Sheen-like effect, which he actually doesn't have. His field passive is identical to Faust in effect. It grants him an assist attack using his skill 1 whenever any Dawn Office ally staggers a target, or whenever a different Dawn Office ally hits a target with their skill 3 or any of their variants. It also grants him 2 Light of Daybreak whenever he hits an enemy whenever he has Dawn Herald, an effect that we'll touch on later. He gets the same wrath damage effect that Faust does, except it applies to added coins rather than reused coins, the big thing that differentiates them really. As long as he's not the only Dawn Office ally on the field, all of your Dawn Office units gain stacks of Dawn Office whenever he enters the encounter. It stacks up to 3, gives offense level for every stack, heals SP at turn start when at the maximum stack, and disappears if all other Dawn Office units are defeated. It's a really nice effect to have and gives incentive to run all 3 units together if the buffs to Sinclair didn't already do that before. Speaking of Sinclair, he gives a different buff to the little German boy, this time from Dawnbreak to Sunset, a more defensive boost. It removes the first stagger threshold from Sinclair and gives him a free stagger recovery at turn end. That recovery replacing one of his base skills with skill 3 after it triggers, but only once per encounter, and it doesn't stay in the skill rotation. It heals SP at turn start, but most importantly prevents Sinclair's SP from dropping below 25 from his own effects while in his volatile ego state, which basically nullifies the need to babysit his SP during a fight, which is crazy good. It also gives Sinclair shield while in the volatile ego state, and makes him inflict burn on the attacker when he's hit while he has shield. When Gregor dies, this changes to Blazing Sunset, which grants more shield to Sinclair and makes him inflict more burn when hit while shielded. It also forces him into volatile ego state immediately, fully heals his SP and gives a massive HP heal, makes it so he cannot exit volatile ego even when at low SP, and his own effects no longer reduce his SP ever. While this is crazy good, it does require Gregor to die, which, while already unlikely, is something you probably want to avoid. Lastly, when Sinclair drops below 50% HP, he will apply Escape Apparatus to him, which stops Sinclair's HP from falling below 10, and then makes Sinclair retreat at turn end if at 10 HP. This is actively detrimental. There is no benefit to making Dawn Sinclair retreat at turn end when running a Burn or Tremor team, so try not to let this effect happen. His support passive makes the ally with the highest HP inflict 2 Tremor on hit if the target has Burn once per turn, and it also triggers Tremor Burst if the target has 10 or more Burn. If you'd rather not run him in a thumb-focused team, this is a pretty solid support passive to have, though I imagine, like always, that you'd rather just have him on the team to begin with. Gregor's defense skill is Guardian, a 3-11 rolling /wrath clashable counter with 2 coins that can become up to a 5-13 based on the target's burn and tremor. It provides self-burn maintenance just like Faust does, and can actually gain Light of Daybreak once every turn rather than once per encounter. It can become his enhanced skill 3 when used at 30 Light of Daybreak, though we'll get to that skill later. And it also gives him Assist Defense, since Gregor is inherently the defensive member of the Dawn Office team. His assist defense skill is Heat Haze, a 4-12 rolling /wrath clashable counter with 2 coins that can become up to a 4-16 based on the target's burn and tremor, plus it can become unbreakable at 20 or more Light of Daybreak or if he used his enhanced skill 3 this turn. It gives him protection as well as another 5 Light of Daybreak, which means it's pretty awesome for being able to stack his status faster in a fight. And assist defense is just generally very strong, so you'll likely want to use this defense skill pretty often. Flash of Sunup is a 3-11 rolling /sloth skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 6-20 with 3 coins based on the target's burn and tremor and his own Light of Daybreak. His skills add an additional unbreakable coin on use based on his Light of Daybreak, and that coin can be used in a clash unlike with Faust. Also unlike Faust, his tremor infliction is a bit better with his early skills, making him an important team member for Scorch teams even if you don't bring the other Dawn Office IDs. This is also the skill he uses as an assist attack, so just from that alone, it's going to end up dealing a lot of bonus damage over the course of the fight if you have the other Dawn Office IDs fielded with him. Sunset Blade is a 4-16 rolling /pride skill with 3 coins that can become up to an 8-24 with 4 coins based on the target's burn and tremor and his Light of Daybreak. This skill can only burst tremor on the additionally added coin, which actually helps to maintain tremor count early into a fight. It's a really reliable skill with great infliction that you're going to get a lot of use out of in most situations. Dawn Splitter is a 4-16 rolling /wrath skill with 4 coins that can become up to a 5-25 based on the target's burn and tremor and his own Light of Daybreak, and can become fully unbreakable from his Light of Daybreak as well. It applies 2 protection to 2 allies at combat start, prioritizing allies from Dawn Office, inflicts a good amount of burn and tremor, converts the tremor amplitude to Scorch, and then bursts tremor once. This ID does not burst tremor a lot, but he's still quite good in that team regardless. Additionally, he'll apply Dawn Herald to all allies next turn. Dawn Herald is an effect that stacks up to 3 and reduces by 1 every turn. It makes skills that inflict burn deal 10% more damage, or 15% more if they are wrath skills, and those skills also gain 1 clash power or 1 base power if the ally is from Dawn Office. It's a really good support effect for burn and tremor teams to have. When he uses either his defense skill or skill 3 while at 30 Light of Daybreak, he'll instead use Crack of Dawn, a 5-17 rolling /wrath skill with 4 unbreakable coins and 3 attack weight that can become up to a 5-29 based on the main target's burn and tremor and his own burn. It inflicts more burn and tremor than the other skill 3, has a much better damage conditional, consumes his own burn to heal HP, always gives everyone the max amount of Dawn Herald, and the only cost is using all of his Light of Daybreak. It is literally just better than his other skill 3, and unlike that skill, you can use it whenever you want thanks to it being able to trigger off of his defense skill. The only ego this ID perfectly fuels is Unbrilliant Glory, whose Man in Scabbard buff does benefit this ID quite a lot. It's super cheap to use for the buff, gives him a free stagger recovery, and the skill itself is insanely good for damage when used at a full stack of Man in Scabbard. It sucks that it's not currently obtainable, but I also wouldn't necessarily see it's required for the ID to be good, since it is basically just a big damage nuke paired with a decent defensive buff. Not only does he not fuel his other ego well, but most of them also don't benefit him super well. The best options are Leisure Domain and Christmas Nightmare since they burst tremor, but outside of that minor synergy, you really don't need to worry about ego for this ID to be really solid. Pairing these IDs with Dawn Office Sinclair and Hornet Merceau is probably the best synergy you can get for them. Sinclair becomes as good as the other two just from existing next to them, and Hornet is insanely strong on his own, becoming even better when he has Dawn Herald. They are all primarily burn as well, and those two IDs will basically guarantee that your burn stack won't run out even in a Tremor team. Scorch is found on all of the Thumb IDs, so they are really solid inclusions alongside Dawn Office. While I would say that Sinclair and Merceau have a better option, Rodian and Heathcliff are two IDs that you'll always want in your burn or tremor teams, so they are the other two best allies you can bring with the Dawn Office inclusions. Building the rest of a team around them will just revolve around what burn or tremor units you think best pair with them. Yisang can equip any of Liu, Heisho, or Solemn Lament with his new ego in order to provide a very strong ally that also has access to very strong ego that work well with these new IDs. Faint Aroma and Solitude or Blade of the House of Spiders Ryoshu are fantastic allies for these two as well, with all the extra skills they are able to bring along. Otis could also bring Magic Bullet, T-Corp, or Ujat as really strong additions. T-Corp and Ujat are just fantastic Tremor units, with T-Corp being the best Tremor count inflictor in the game, while Magic Bullet lets Burn deal a lot more damage using the Dark Flame status effect. Zhang's Office or Zwei Ishmael, as well as Sunk Don Quixote, are great units to bring along for either Tremor or Burn respectively, as their very high damage combined with the great Sin affinities they have access to will make your team much more reliable at fueling ego. And lastly, Yuradivi Honglu can bring along Cavernous Wailing for reverb, but you're almost never going to be able to take advantage of both reverb and Scorch at the same time, since your only entanglement methods are from Everlasting and Crushbound Past. And I guess his skill 3, but that's a really inconsistent way to do it. Now we finally get to move on to Yisang's new He ego, Solemn Lament. It's a really cheap ego for how ridiculously strong it ends up being. The Awakening is a 6-21 rolling Pierce Gloom unfocused volley with 5 unbreakable coins that can gain up to 4 clash power based on the main target's butterfly and sinking. It inflicts a ton of both types of butterfly, then deals a bunch of gloom damage on the final coin based on the target's butterfly, and even more based on how much ammo it spends, and only the matching ID can spend said ammo. It also has the ability to inflict both Gloom Fragility and Gloom Resist down, meaning that the final coin will be absurdly strong if you only hit a single target. This is already an incredible ego for dealing damage, his second to best overall after Great Trichiliocosm, but it gets even better when we look at the passive. It improves clash power by 1 if the target has Butterfly, and allows all units to inflict Butterfly if the target has enough Sinking and Butterfly combined. Butterfly is an incredibly valuable effect for both damage and SP healing that you'll want to have on the enemy as often as possible. Additionally, for the ID of the matching name, he is now considered a Tremor ID and can inflict Tremor with his base skills, for some reason. More importantly, it increases his ammo capacity by 10, makes it so that upon reloading he'll heal 10 SP, making it take less SP to reload in essence, and also makes him discard a base skill, excluding his skill 3, making him way more consistently able to activate his skill 3 during a fight, since he reloads a lot. If he uses his defense skill, it will also heal SP, and gives him a free stagger recovery that also triggers a reload. It's an insane buff to his consistency that puts him on par with modern IDs thanks to being able to access his best skill far more often, and that skill being able to spend more ammo, meaning it deals more damage in turn. The Corrosion is a 16-7 rolling Pierce Gloom skill with 3 unbreakable coins and 3 attack weight that can gain up to 2 more attack weight based on your highest resonance. It is also a really good ego for damage, being much better when there are multiple targets present since all of its effects will apply to all of its targets. It also doesn't consume ammo, meaning the second burst of gloom damage is based on the target's sinking instead, and that is a much larger burst of damage than on the Awakening, at least at a full stack. That said, it not being able to reload like the Awakening does will hurt its usefulness when used with the matching ID, and it is more expensive despite having significantly lower single target damage in boss fights, so overall it will probably be less useful. You're very clearly intended to use it with the ID of the matching name. Not only does that ID gain a bunch of additional bonuses from using it, but he'll also perfectly fuel the ego to nobody's surprise. That said, there are other things worth noting with ID synergy here. The high amount of sinking count makes it nearly count neutral, so either of his other good sinking IDs in Index or Spicebush will also make very good use of it when it comes to dealing high damage without needing to worry too much about eating into your sinking stack. And lastly, Blade Lineage Yisang is capable of giving the Awakening up to 3 coin power, making it roll a 6 to 36, which is just insane. That said, he doesn't feel it great, and he gets no status synergy when it comes to sinking or tremor. And that's about all I have to say about this Walpurgisnacht. I'm a bit disappointed in Runa yet again not having any playable content, but Burn and Tremor are 2 of my favorite teams, so I'm glad to see them getting more support. I think Tremor is actually the most common status for Walpurgisnacht now too. I have them all and Dawn Office Sinclair in my company if you'd like to try them out before pulling for them. Let me know what you think about them in the comments, as I like hearing what other people have to say about new releases, and be sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.